This is Robert Costa in Washington, which is bracing for the return of President-elect Donald Trump, who seems ready to rumble.
Woke is bull.
But change isn't easy, as Carl Hulse knows. We met the esteemed New York Times correspondent at Eastern Market on Capitol Hill, where the butchers have an easier time than the legislators down the street.
How hard is it to make the sausage in Washington these days?
Super hard. I think we're seeing examples of that. It's just tough. It's tough. The country is polarized, so Congress is polarized, and there's just not that many competitive seats, right? So we didn't see, in the Senate we saw a shift in the election, obviously, and the Republicans are going to take it over. House Republicans, actually, I think at the end of the day, are going to come up a little short of what they had last time. Very narrow. How do you get anything done? People are dug in.
Is Speaker Johnson able to control his members?
No, but in his defense, and I won't offer a lot of defenses, it's an impossible job. It's just impossible. Everybody who's had it recently has really struggled. These are folks who have their own brand in a lot of ways. And I mean, so the idea for Republicans now is that, okay, they're going to all be unified around President Trump, but I'm not sure that that's going to carry all the way through.
President Trump has all these ambitions. He wants to get taxes done, border legislation done. What's actually possible?
It's hard to do things. In Congress, it's going to be really hard on taxes, but I think I think they'll get a tax deal. So talking to a lot of people over the last few weeks about all of this, it's like, what can really get done? You have to have a limited perspective here, but you can get a few big things done. And some people say one big thing, some will say two. I think Trump can get a couple big things done. I think he can get some kind of tax deal. Republicans love to cut taxes, even the moderate Republicans. You know, Susan Collins, she will be a thorn for Trump on something, but she likes to cut taxes. So I think that, and on immigration, I think you're going to see some real change, right? The Democrats have gotten there a little bit themselves. So, but other than that, you know, they're talking about big changes in, you know, the structure of the government, and I think that's a little harder to attain.
Why? You've been covering this for a long time. Newt, Reagan.
We've been down this road before. You know, Ronald Reagan comes in and he is going to drastically remake government efficiency, sets up a special commission, the Grace Commission, very famous commission at that time, explored all avenues of the federal bureaucracy, and we're going to get some cuts. You know what happened? So when Reagan left office, the deficit had tripled and the workforce had grown. Right, the Department of Energy.
That might be a warning to Elon Musk. You're not going to maybe get what you want.
Yeah, and you know, it's not like running a private company. Newt Gingrich comes in, contract with America. So Reagan never had a Democratic House, so maybe a little bit of a defense for him. Newt Gingrich comes in, Republicans get full control of Congress. They're going to do amazing things themselves and cut the workforce and change the footprint of the federal government. And so they were really having trouble finding buildings to sell. They wanted to sell a building to show that they were part of this effort, a congressional building. So they focused on this building that's down the Capitol from First Street. I went by there the other day. 30 years later, it's the government building, but it's abandoned. It's empty, sitting there. So never even got that one sold. So these things are tough. And the bureaucracy, it's a leviathan, right? And you know, it's just hard without knowing how these agencies really work to make the kind of cuts these folks are talking about. I talked to Ray LaHood, who's, you know, former House member, was there for the contract with America, and then became DOT secretary. And he said to me, if the people in the agency are not somehow on board, you'll never get anything changed in those agencies. I mean, they've built like a force field around themselves. None of this is to say there's not room to find some inefficiencies and cuts, Pentagon, but it's hard to get it done. And Congress, you know, they protect their prerogative. You know, Elon Musk is talking about, we're going to offer all these cuts. Well, the Appropriations Committee is going to have to sign off on them. How do you do that? And everything in Washington has a constituency. even things that probably aren't relevant anymore. And so when you poke the bear, somebody tries to protect it, they go, no, cut the other guy's stuff. Don't cut my stuff. So, grand plans, grand designs meet grand opposition.
How much power does Trump actually have?
Well, Trump's actually probably the best person I've ever seen at the bully pulpit, because he's an actual bully, right? And he really does go after people. I think that's his real power, right? Trump is not someone who really knows the intricacies of the federal government, nor does he care to know it. He just wants to tell people to do something. I will say Russ Vought, who will be the OMB director, Office of Management Budget, really does know this stuff. I think Russ Vought is somebody really to watch here and how he operates. He was OMB director before, probably going to be it again, and he does understand the federal budget and the politics of the federal budget. So, Trump's going to have some power, but look at the margin in the House. John Thune taking over in the Senate, fairly allied with Trump, but not a big Trump guy. There's built-in pockets of resistance in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, who is the outgoing leader. So many people in Washington really haven't been around a Senate where Mitch McConnell wasn't in control. 18 years, right? Bill Frist was the leader before him. I don't think people remember Bill Frist, but they do Mitch McConnell. But Mitch is going into a new role, and I think he's going to be somebody who Trump's going to have to reckon with. He's not afraid of Trump.
You think Senator McConnell can be a real foil for Trump?
I do. I think on certain issues. I think certainly on national defense policy. He considers himself a Reagan Republican, to speak about President Reagan again, and he wants to protect that American role in the world, which Trump and some of the MAGA people they're trying to pull that back. I think you're going to hear a lot from Senator McConnell. He's been telling his colleagues, "I'm liberated, and I'm ready to go, and I don't have to represent the party line anymore."
But it seems like his successor, Senator Thune, is pretty friendly to President-elect Trump.
Yeah, I think that John Thune knows that he has to stay on good terms with Trump, and they share a lot of ideas, right? Certainly on tax cuts, and I think that Senator McConnell saw the election of Senator Thune as his successor as a sign that the Senate wasn't really ready to cave completely to Trump, because it could have been Rick Scott, right, who was much more allied with Trump, and the Senate Republicans rejected him. I know McConnell was happy with the election of Thune.
Is Trump making a bit of a gamble with these nominations? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for HHS, Tulsi Gabbard for DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. Who gets through, who doesn't?
It's sort of like that, what do they call that, multiple warhead system, where you just fire a bunch in there and hope some get through. That was kind of how I saw Trump and his folks, what they were doing. Some are going to get through. Some are going to get through. There's only even Susan Collins, who you would say would have resistance to many of these. She's only got so many bullets she can fire. She's going to be chair of the Appropriations Committee. She has to. She can't be a total maverick. But I think there'll be objections to some. But the thing to remember also about cabinet nominees, and senators think about them this way: these aren't lifetime appointments. They're not like judges or the Supreme Court justices, where it's like, well, that's it. I mean, these are people who come and go. And certainly in Trump's world, they can come and go very quickly. I think Tulsi Gabbard, has some real problems.
She might be the most vulnerable.
That even though there's not the same swirl around her, that in that sphere, the intelligence sphere, that there is concern with Republicans, and that, she's the preparer of the daily brief, I believe, in that position. And, she determines what the president sees and doesn't see. And I hear a lot of more quiet rumblings about her as opposed to Heggs, defense secretary, where it's all out in the open. And, we'll see. I mean, these hearings, they'll be starting right after the new Congress starts. And hearings take on their own life. And, there's going to be new things that come out, and the Democrats, who have been kind of quiet on a lot of these, trying to have the Republicans fight it out. Chuck Schumer has been strategically quiet. He doesn't want Trump to be able to say, oh, look, crying Chuck Schumer is blocking my nominee. So they've gone quiet there, but they'll have a lot more to say in these hearings, and they can expose things. I think competency is going to be not just the personal behavior, right, but competency. And how does somebody like Pete Hegseth, who basically was a TV analyst, run the most important giant agency in the federal government? I think that, and then you have some other issues. You have a labor nominee who's considered by Republicans to be too friendly to labor.
But that reflects Trump's embrace of labor.
Right. I mean, Trump is not, he's hard to pin down on some of these issues. He's very political. I mean, the unions, certainly some of the, were seen as good to him. So he's longshoreman. I know he's been supportive of. But so that's going to make some Republicans nervous. And then RFK Jr., lots of nervousness on many levels, including his thoughts about ag policy. But to Republicans, he's also a very...
And he seems to be winning over even some mild Democratic support.
Yeah, I think, well...
Former Democrat.
Yeah, and then, like the governor of Colorado was saying good things about him, Jared Polis. I think that the RFK talk about a healthier America does kind of resonate, right, with some people. I think these are going to be amazing confirmation hearings. And what has died out a little bit has been the talk of going around the Senate, right, with the recess appointments. That could, obviously, if these nominees run into big trouble somewhere, then you might see that. But so far, it seems like they're going to try and go through the process.
You were talking to Republican senators and Republican House members privately.
Yeah.
What do they really say about Elon Musk?
I had one tell me the other day that Trump created a monster. I think that certainly there's a part of in House Republicans, great, this is great, this guy is going to help us through, and he's got this great big megaphone and he's going to try and turn this around. But boy, there's a lot of people, appropriators, who think this is a bad idea. This is a person who's way outside the government and who has, this really powerful social media platform, but doesn't really know the government. He hasn't worked in it. He's been a contractor. And I have talked to people who sat down with him who were impressed by how sharp he was on some of the issues they thought he might not know much about. But I did hear that. But I think unchecked power, right, and lack of accountability, and just his capability of just bursting into any debate and upending it, I think really makes people nervous. I did have somebody said he's a real monster.
How do you expect Democrats to handle Trump's return to power?
I think they're still trying to figure that out. I think the House is kind of what to watch, because by our cyclical politics, the House is the institution most likely to flip in 2 years, right? So the House, Hakeem Jeffries is going to be very strategic, and he wants to make sure, the expectation almost already is that the Democrats will take back the House, and that he wants to make sure that happens, because I think under any circumstances that would be considered a really big loss if they can't do that. Senate's going to take a little more time, and it depends on how things go for the Democrats over there. But they're going to put up a fight. They're going to fight, as Trump would say. But it's so limited what they can do. And, even in the Senate with the nominees, the rules changes have made it so you can do it strictly on a majority vote. So their options are limited. A lot of it is just to highlight things, right, and put the spotlight on things.
President Biden has a few weeks left in office. What's his role in the final days?
Pretty limited, I have to say, Bob. Watching the shutdown fight that went on, the White House didn't even seem to really be engaged. It's just a fact. I think he's trying to wrap things up, stay out of the spotlight, do the pardons that he wants to do. had very great success on judicial nominations that got wrapped up at the end of the Congress, but I don't see a lot of his involvement right now. And for the times I've been here, it seems like the power transfer almost happened already.
Are some of President Biden's friends in the Senate a little wistful about how this is all ending?
I think so, and plus it's a tricky thing for them too, because they had a big part in pushing him out of the race, right? That was, I think, of all that went on around that I think that the fact that Senate Democrats were so intent on seeing him step aside, I think that was wounding, because that's his place, the Senate, and in some ways those were his people. I think that in some ways they're pretty proud of what they were able to accomplish when they had full control of Congress, and they think they did a good job. They passed some legislation, they did some good things, and now it's more they're bracing for the fight. I think Joe Biden is in the rearview mirror.